Can a launch monitor that has a built-in screen, built-in remote, ability to use indoors or outdoors, and has full simulator access, but only costs $499, actually be any good? Well, today we're gonna find out because this is the new Voice Caddie SC4 Pro, and there's a lot of people that are asking the question, is it the best budget launch monitor out there? And today, we're gonna answer that question. Let's go. So a couple years ago, I reviewed this, the original SC4 Pro, which looks identical to the new one. Literally, if you were just looking at the two of them, you could not tell the difference at all. And at the time, I said it was excellent. It was surprisingly accurate. The user experience was great. The built-in screen looked good. The remote was convenient, but it had one giant flaw. And that was that the app sucked. Like, the app was really, really bad. And what I said at the time was that I hope they would continue to improve the app, because if they did that, it would be the absolute no-brainer best launch monitor under $500. So here's what they did. Instead of improving the app outside of like minor fixes and things like that, they just created an all-new app and then released this, the SC4 Pro. Now, pretty much everything about the physical device is exactly the same. It's the same Doppler radar, it's the same screen, same form factor. Like I said, you can't even tell the difference between the two, but this one comes with the new Voice Caddie S app, as well as the new Prometrics algorithm. So you might be wondering, okay, there's a new app, what actually changed here? Well, the big thing that changed was the addition of the Prometrics machine learning algorithm. And so this is a proprietary Voice Caddie algorithm, which is essentially supposed to help get you more accurate metrics and specifically more accurate spin data without changing the hardware. So how does that work technically? I have no idea. But overall, I've been very impressed with how well it works, especially as it relates to getting some of those lateral data metrics, but we're going to talk about that in the accuracy section here in just a minute. Now, if you don't own the original SC4, good news, because the new SC4 Pro is awesome, and we're going to talk about that. One thing I want to get out of the way, because I think it kind of sucks, frankly, is that if you bought that SC4 Pro, you can't use the new app. You can't take advantage of all the new stuff. And that promise that I'd hoped of them improving the old My Voice Caddie app just never really materialized. And I'm sure there are technical things way over my head as to why the old one can't use the new app and get those new features, but from where I sit, this is essentially the same device as this. So I would love to see a way for them to update the SC4 to have some of the features of the SC4 Pro to reward the people that bought this all-new product at a similar price point as what the new one costs. So does that matter to you if you're thinking about buying this new device? Probably not, but it's something to kind of keep in mind. I really don't want this to be a trend for golf tech companies. I don't want to see them releasing a new product every year, forgetting about all of their old customers, where in most cases you can just be upgrading your existing device and making it better. FlightScope does an excellent job of this. The Mevo Plus originally came out almost 5 years ago, and every single year since then there have been meaningful upgrades. Yes, they have made minor changes to the hardware, made minor upgrades, but if you bought that original Mevo Plus, for the most part, you still have access to all the features of the brand new one, and I would like to see that here with Voice Caddie. Also, one thing I want to get out of the way is Voice Caddie, Swing Caddie. The original SC4 was marketed as a Swing Caddie device. I think the new one is marketed as a Voice Caddie device, even though it says Swing Caddie on the device itself. To be clear, these are both the same company. Usually they use the Swing Caddie moniker for launch monitors, and they use the Voice Caddie for rangefinders, watches, and other devices. So hopefully they're just gonna kind of combine those and make them all one name, because it's kind of confusing. All right, now that I got that rant out of the way, because we have a lot of very positive things I do want to talk about today, let's talk about first impressions of the SC4 Pro. So in terms of packaging and build quality, for the price, this thing is excellent. The packaging isn't necessarily anything special, but overall it does a good job. In the box, you're gonna find the device itself, you're gonna find a charging cable, you're gonna find an instruction book, and you're going to find a card with a validation code to get set up for E6 Connect. The SC4 doesn't come with the carrying case, although you can buy one for an extra $50, and overall this is a very high quality, very nice case. Personally, at this price point, I'm okay with the fact they didn't include a carrying case, because I would rather them keep this price low and then allow you to spend more money if you want to, because not necessarily everybody is going to need or want this, considering it's not a huge device. You could put it in your bag and you're probably gonna forget about it. And the build quality is pretty good. This is a sturdy device, so I wouldn't be overly concerned about hurting it too much if it was living in my golf bag. Also, one other point before we get too far into this video that I want to bring up is I keep referring to the price on this as $499 and talking about it as being one of the best launch monitors under $500. If you go to their website, you may have noticed the retail price is $599. Well, for some reason, Voice Caddie's taken a liking to me, and I'm one of the very few places where you can go and you can get this for $499. So I will link to that below. There's a special page where you can get that price. As I'm sure you could figure out, if you do click that link, if you do buy the product from that page, I will get a commission. If you think that makes me biased, I totally understand. Go do your own research. research, but I genuinely do not care if you buy this or any other product I mention or not. My whole goal here is to help you find the right products for your needs. And as you're gonna see in this video, I talk about both the things I love about this as well as the things I don't. So I really try and be unbiased, but if you do decide it's right for you and you wanna help out the channel, buying it through that link will help me out and save you some money in the process. One more note on design that I think is really slick is basically it's got a built-in stand here, and then on the back, then on the back, you've got the remote. So the remote just kind of lives here, which I think is great. It's nice that it has a spot so that you don't lose it, because personally, this is the kind of thing I would lose all the time if I didn't have a place for it. So really like the way that that works. All right, let's talk setup with the SC4 Pro. Overall, works really, really well. As I mentioned, there is an all-new app. It is the Voice Caddie S app instead of the My Voice Caddie app or My Swing Caddie app, which was the old one. You make sure the device is charged, you download the app, you set up your account, you turn on Bluetooth, it's gonna give you a pairing code, you plug in the pairing code, and within like 30, 45 seconds, you will be good to go. Everything has been super smooth, super seamless, and I've had a really good experience with it. That being said, the app connectivity, which works great, is just one aspect of the setup. The other is making sure that everything is set up and aligned properly, and with the SC4 Pro, this takes a little bit more time than it did with the SC4. Why is this? Well, it's because the SC4 has some additional metrics, and most of those relate to lateral data. So you're gonna get spin axis, you're gonna get side spin, and you're going to get dispersion. And so because it's going to give you that additional lateral data, you wanna make sure it's set up properly so that it's going to display the correct information. Now, how easy this setup is gonna depend a little bit on your own personal setups. So one thing that's great about this device is it only needs to be 5 feet behind the ball. The Rapsodo MLM2 Pro, the FlightScope Mevo Plus, the Garmin R10, those all need to be 7 to 8 feet behind the ball, and this only needing to be 5 feet behind the ball is great if you're someone who doesn't have a whole lot of space behind you at the range you are, or if you're setting up at home or your garage or something like that and you don't have that much space, this is gonna be a good option. And so, simple setup. Let's say you've got a giant mat and everything is the same level. So for me personally, I often do a lot of my practice in a batting cage where the whole thing is just artificial turf. Great. I open this up, I set it down behind the ball, I'm pretty much good to go because there is no height difference. What's gonna happen is when you start using it, it's gonna give you a number that's anywhere from like plus 12 to negative 12, and you're trying to get it to 0. And so you're going to adjust how it sits to make sure you get to 0. I've generally found this to work pretty well, and in those scenarios where you just have a big flat space, it works great. And obviously this is also true if you're hitting off a grass range where you've got nothing but grass behind you. Now the problem is most of the time you're probably going to be hitting off a hitting mat, which is going to be 1 or 2 inches above where you would put this device. Now, in order to get the most accurate results, what Voice Caddie says is you need to make sure that you get the SC4 Pro at the same height as the ball. If you decide to get the included carrying case, this is one way you can do it. There's also, for an extra $50, an alignment stand, which is going to allow you to turn these to adjust the height of the device so that you can make sure that everything is level. I will say for me, the end result of this was it did make it very easy to get it level. So as you can see where I was practicing, we had a mat and then concrete and then grass, and it was definitely not the ideal setup, but I was able to use this and within about a minute, minute and a half, get everything adjusted so that everything sat perfectly and I got accurate results. That being said, the design on this kind of sucks. First, when you have these bolts in, it will not fit in the bag that it came with. So if you want to easily and cleanly pack it away, you've got to unscrew these, put it back in the bag, and then do that every single time. You also have these little rubber feet here, which is great, but you're gonna have to take those off and make sure that you don't lose them. And if you just want to leave everything in here, like I would prefer to do, then it just doesn't pack away very easily. There is a level on the top, which I found to work really well to make sure that everything was level and aligned properly. But overall, it's just not the most elegant setup. Not to mention the fact that when you're using it, so it's gonna sit in your alignment thing like this, these bolts kind of get in the way of the screen. Like you can see it for the most part, but it's still a little weird that these are so big and so tall. I feel like if they were half the size, you would have essentially still been able to do the same thing and not run into this issue where, depending on the angle you're at, it makes it tougher to see the information. So all that to say, once it is set up and aligned properly, it works great, but depending on your unique situation and where you are doing it, it could range from very easy and very fast to set up to a little bit cumbersome and kind of annoying. Not the end of the world, but definitely something you should keep in mind. Hey, real quick, are you subscribed yet? Okay, I'll wait. 1, 2, 3. All right, thanks so much. Back to the video. Okay, so what is the SC4 Pro like when you were using it without the app? If you were just setting it down and using it, how well does it work? Honestly, It works great. When you were doing this, it is almost identical to the setup you're going to have with the original SC4. You're going to set it down and you're going to be able to see 8 metrics on the screen ranging from carry to launch direction, swing speed, ball speed, smash factor, launch angle, and so on. The screen is very bright, so even in relatively bright sunlight, I've had no issues seeing it, and overall it works great. The included remote is also extremely handy. You leave it in your pocket and then you can just switch what club you're using, you can switch different modes, you can switch it from carry to total distance, you can change the volume if there's a bunch of people on the range next to you and you don't want the annoying voice readout and having everybody stare at you. Pretty much everything you're going to want to control, you can use with the remote, and it works really well. We'll get to the accuracy of the unit in just a couple minutes, but overall, if you're just wanting a simple setup, you don't want to deal with the simulator stuff, you don't want to deal with the app, you're in a session where you don't care about tracking your data or whatever, you just want reasonably accurate numbers quickly and easily, this does a wonderful job at that. And one quick point I want to make about that. If you don't care about the app, you don't care about simulator use, all you want is something you can put behind you on the range and quickly and easily get your numbers, I might consider going and buying the original SC4. There's a link below where you can pick it up for $389, which is a pretty killer deal. I don't know how long we're going to have that deal because I don't believe it's publicly available on the Voice Caddie website anymore. But when you're using this without the app, the SC4 and the SC4 Pro pretty much feel identical. So if you know you don't care about the app, then I think you're safe buying the original because the experience is so similar. But where these two things are different in a very big way is with the new Voice Caddie S app. So you download the app, you pair your SC4 Pro with your iPad or your phone or whatever device you're using. When you fire it up, there's going to be 3 main sections. There's going to be practice, there's going to be swing speed, and there's going to be statistics. So let's cover what each of those are. So let's first talk about the practice mode, and specifically that is the 3D range. And let me tell you, I have been blown away by this 3D range. It is so far better than the old app. I mean, the old app didn't have a 3D range at all, but this one is really, really good. And I'm not saying that it's really good for a $500 device. It's really good when you compare it to devices that cost, 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much. So with this 3D range, you're able to customize it so you can pretty much see whatever metrics you want quickly and easily. There's a 3D shot tracer that works very well. The range looks good. The graphics are decent for what you're going to use it for. You can see shot lists, you can star shots, like overall, it just does everything you would want it to for a practice session, and it does it easily. It does it well. It does it in a way that's user-friendly that I just have really enjoyed using, which I'm kind of shocked by, but I'm happy about it. That being said, the drawback here is that it's pretty limited in terms of modes. You're not going to find like a wedge matrix or bag mapping. There's nothing like the combine feature that the MLM2 Pro has. You're not going to find some additional simulator features like Rapsodo's courses or Garmin's Home T Hero. This is pretty much just a basic 3D range, but it is very well executed, and I think that if you are only concerned about your practice and getting those numbers and saving those numbers for future review, this is definitely going to get the job done. And even better, it does it without a subscription. But we'll talk about pricing a little bit more later on. The second mode is a swing speed mode, which is going to allow you to practice your swing speed. So you basically go and swing, you don't have to hit a ball, and it's going to tell you exactly how fast you swung. It's going to tell you your fastest swing of the day, your average swing speed, and your best all-time swing speed. So if you're really trying to increase your swing speed, maybe you're using a speed training system, to be able to see that average data is super useful to see if you're actually making progress over time. It's a pretty basic setup, there's not a whole lot to it, but I like that. I like the fact they kept it simple, and as far as I can tell in terms of swing speeds, it seems very accurate, and just like the practice mode, it is enjoyable to use. The third mode is a statistics mode where you're able to go back and get your data from all of your different sessions, and this is definitely the weakest part of the app. This is a part that kind of feels a little more reminiscent to the old app. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely been some upgrades, it's certainly better, but depending on what device you're using it on will help dictate what your experience is like. So if you're trying to go back and see like all the data from all the 7 irons you hit, but you're doing it on your phone, kind of tough to see. It's definitely not mobile optimized in that way, or at least the statistics section in particular. If you're doing it on something with a bigger screen like an iPad, it definitely works better. And personally, I think if you were planning to buy this and planning to use it, I would definitely recommend doing it with an iPad because everything just works so much better when you're doing it. So I set up my iPad on a tripod so that I could see all my data while I'm sitting there at the range, and that worked beautifully. Even though the statistics aren't super optimized for a smaller screen, I do like the fact that you can access your training data from any device. So you log in your Voice Caddie account and you're going to be able to see all of your sessions regardless of whether or not you recorded it on your phone or your iPad, and that's a really nice feature. So while the app experience is relatively simple, they at least nailed it in execution, and it is light years better than the older app for the original SC4. One other thing to note as an added bonus is you can use this with E6 Connect, and I'm told there's going to be more simulator platforms and simulator software it's going to be compatible with in the future. So if you're looking for a budget simulator, this is basically the cheapest launch monitor I can actually recommend that's going to allow you to use E6 or actually play real simulator golf. The downside is that it only comes with one free course and one driving range. Hey, editing Sean here, and I realized that when I was talking about E6, I had a couple things wrong. So the little card you get that allows you to sign up for E6 Connect, it says you get one driving range and access to one course. But once I went and actually set that up on my iPad, I found out that it actually includes 5 courses, including Bandon Dunes, which I was really excited about. So I haven't done a full test using E6 Connect, but I imagine it's going to be similar to the experience you would have using any other device, and is a really nice inclusion, and I'm glad that they upgraded it from 1 course to 5 courses, because now it is more in line with other products at that price range. Okay, now the part you've probably been waiting for, accuracy. Is this thing actually accurate, and does it work for under $500? The answer? Yeah, mostly. Let's talk about what I mean by that. So when I first got everything set up, I had my iPad, I was at the range, I had my 7-iron in my hand, I hit my first few balls, and I literally said out loud, wow. Because everything was just night and day better than it was with the old app. I watched that shot tracer go up with my 7-iron, and it was pretty much a perfect representation of the shot that I had just hit. Accuracy-wise, pretty much dead on. And for the next 5, 6, 7 shots with that 7-iron, it did the exact same thing. Whether I sliced it, whether I hooked it, if I hit it low, it tracked everything really, really well. I then moved down to a 4-iron, similar results. It was also great because with the iPad on the tripod, I could just go up, hit the button to switch my clubs. Everything worked really, really well from a user experience like that. But at this point, I'm looking at this being like, man, this is way more accurate than I was expecting it to be. And then I moved to wedges. And my experience with wedges has not quite been as good as it was with my long to mid irons. This is where for maybe 1 out of every 4, 1 out of every 5 shots, the shot tracer would do something weird. I don't know if it was because I was hitting the ball so high that it was losing track of it somehow, but it wasn't doing quite as good of a job as accurately tracking the flight path as it was for my 4 all the way up through 9 irons. Distance was relatively close compared to my Bushnell Launch Pro. Everything was within 2 to 3 yards with my wedges, which is the same experience that I had with the original SC4. And spin rates, while they were dead on with my irons, were definitely more variable with wedges. Some would certainly be close within a few hundred RPMs, but then I had other ones that were a 2,000 to 3,000 RPM variance. So depending on what you're using this information for and how precise you need to be with your spin, that's definitely something to keep in mind, because I think it's going to vary depending on the club you're using as well as the environment. Because my experience indoors with this definitely had more variability than it did outdoors on the range. Driver was another area that was a little bit of a mixed bag. I had some drives that were within 3 to 5 yards of what I was getting on the Launch Pro. Then I had other drives that were a 15 to 20 yard difference. And again, most of those ones with the really big variance were inside, but I did have 1 out of 5 or so on the outdoor range that were just wildly off. I then hit the next one, which would usually be pretty good, would kind of make me forget about it. But that is one of the things I've found with less expensive launch monitors, is it's not just the accuracy, but the reliability and the consistency of that. So you're gonna have more off shots, more miss shots than you will have with a more expensive launch monitor. One thing I will note that I was surprised by is that it actually seemed to do a pretty good job with chipping. So practicing chip shots with my 56-degree wedge, it was getting trajectory right as well as distance right, and it was doing it pretty consistently, which was nice to see. And now knowing that it can do that pretty accurately, I would love to see a dedicated mode leaning towards this. And so this is something I really hope to see in the future, is expanding out that Voice Caddie S app with some more modes that are going to allow you to practice different things easier. So to sum up performance and accuracy, I would say it's reasonably accurate, and it's reasonably accurate for its price. Is it going to be as accurate as more expensive devices? No. Is it going to be as consistent and as reliable as devices that are more expensive? No. But for $500, it does a pretty darn good job, to the point where the data that I was getting was useful. Yeah, I'd have to ignore the occasional outlier and everything here, but overall, I've been able to have legitimate practice sessions with data that is good enough to actually help me improve my game and work on the things that I wanted to work on. If you're trying to decide, should you buy this or should you spend a little bit more and get a Garmin R10 or a Rapsodo MLM2 Pro, let me see if I can give you my take on that. Is this as accurate as an MLM2 Pro? No, I don't think so. I think it's pretty close in a lot of regards, but the 2-camera system of the MLM2 Pro definitely gives it an edge. As for just the 3D range, I think I actually like the Voice Caddie 3D range better in the way that it works, but the Rapsodo definitely has way more modes and way more features built into its app. The fact you can now get an unlimited lifetime subscription to the Rapsodo also is going to make that more intriguing for a lot of people. So I think that's going to come out to $1,200 lifetime for everything, whereas this you can get for $500 and you're not going to have any subscription or additional pricing ever. So it's obviously a lot more money. So the app experience, better with the Rapsodo. Accuracy, better with the Rapsodo. But the Voice Caddie has the built-in screen, the remote, it doesn't need quite as much space, there's no subscription, and it's considerably cheaper off the bat. So I think it just kind of depends a little bit on what you're looking for and what your budget is. The Garmin, on the other hand, isn't that much more expensive. The Garmin is going to give you more data points, but the app experience is definitely starting to get a little long in the tooth. It is desperately in need of a little bit of an update, and the 3D range is much better on the Voice Caddie. So if that's predominantly where you're gonna lie, just 3D range, shot tracer, using an iPad, using your phone, then I think the Voice Caddie might be the way to go. If you're already in the Garmin ecosystem, or you like the fact that Garmin is currently compatible with Awesome Golf and some of these other features, or you like the idea of Home T Hero, where you can play 42,000 different courses right on your mobile device, that's definitely something that Voice Caddie can't compare with yet. So that's gonna depend a little bit less on cost and more just what type of features you're looking for, what type of experience you want. As for anything else under $500, the Rapsodo MLM, the PRGR, the FlightScope Mevo, I would go Voice Caddie. I think that for under $500, this is unequivocally the best launch monitor out there. Plain and simple. So there you go. That was probably a much longer review than you wanted, or maybe it wasn't long enough if I didn't answer your questions, but overall, I have been very, very impressed with the new SC4 Pro. Do I wish that they had just upgraded the original SC4 and given current users these same features? Yes. But the fact that they have improved it so much, the fact they've got an all-new app that is great is awesome. The fact they're doing all of this with no subscription, and I'm going to say the same thing which I said for the last one, is that I hope they continue to update the app, adding more features, making it better, and really invest in the system because it's already great, but if they can do that, it's just going to make it that much more of a no-brainer in that like sub $1,000 price range. But if you've just been sitting here waiting for the answer of is the SC4 Pro any good, the answer is yes. It is very good as long as you understand its limitations, as long as you understand who it's for, and as long as you're not trying to compare it to a launch monitor that costs $5,000, then in just about every way, I've been really impressed with it. My name is Sean Ogle. I'm the founder of this thing here at Breaking 80, where we talk about cool golf products and cool golf courses. If you got some value out of this, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.